What a freaking win.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fran Brown, how about that? Another game where you can say, welcome to the Fran Brown era. And folks, welcome to Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. Thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. We are always free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And yes, I am a young podcaster in case this is your first time checking out Locked On Syracuse. And with me being young, yes, sometimes I do get blemishes on my head. But you know what? That's okay, because we're talking about Syracuse football right now and how they went into Death Valley. Emotions, a great start, a freaking lightning delay, and they just punched Clemson in the mouth. Heading into this game, I said the one outcome that I really can't see happening is that Syracuse blows out Clemson, right? If we're going through all the list of outcomes, Syracuse football with a close win, Clemson with a close win, perhaps Clemson with playing for its season with a blowout win over Syracuse. I know the final score says 34-21 Syracuse, and there were moments in the fourth quarter where Syracuse was seemingly trying to give this game away back to Clemson. But this was a beatdown by Syracuse football, and we're going to talk about it here on Locked On Syracuse. And before we do so, this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. So, folks, how are we all feeling? What a win for Syracuse. And really, it was a statement. From opening kickoff, Syracuse football was going to go into Death Valley, and they were not going to be scared by the moment. And they came out a little bit unconventional. This is a team that prefers to pass the ball. At least that's what we've seen from Syracuse football ever since this coaching staff took over at the beginning of last year, and especially with their offensive coordinator in Jeff Nixon. They love to pass. So what do? They come out and they run the football right down Clemson's throat. They could not stop the run at the beginning of the game. Yassine Willis had a big 30-plus yard run on the second play from scrimmage. And they're set up. And once they're set up deep in Clemson territory, you have Steve Angeli, more on him later in the game, finding Justice Ross Simmons on a back shoulder fade. Boom, fast start for Syracuse. It's 7-0. But let's be honest. We wanted Syracuse, of course, to get off to a good start because I don't think Syracuse was going to win this game if they didn't get off to a good start. But you're going to need to score more points. At that point, you really can't trust your defense to really get off the field, right? Right? More on the defense later in just a moment. In their performance in the second half, they were amazing. So what does Syracuse do? What does Fran Brown do? What does Rickie Brumfield, the special teams coordinator, do? Shout out to him, by the way. He has completely changed this Syracuse special teams, which last year was a liability. This year, it's a strength, at least through 4 games this season. They go with a surprise onside kick, and I loved it. I got to be honest with you, I wasn't thinking surprise onside kick in the moment. So it's going to sound like I'm saying this because of the result, which was that Syracuse got the surprise onside kick. They executed it perfectly. But let's walk through the process here. You're up 7-0. You're in Death Valley. You're on the road. Clemson's playing for its season. And which of the two units do you trust more? At that time, Steve Angeli was the quarterback of Syracuse. Do you trust the offense more, or do you trust the defense more? You choose. Comment in the comments section below. I trust the offense more. And let's be honest, at that point, Did you really trust the Syracuse defense that they were going to get a stop regardless of the field position? We actually saw late in the second quarter Clemson go 90 yards down the field in a blink of an eye. So who cares about the field position? Try to steal a possession there because you're not going to get the ball to start the second half. And so Syracuse, they do the onside kick, they get it, and they end up kicking a field goal on the drive. They stall out in a goal-to-go situation, which was honestly a real bummer because it felt like Syracuse can go up 14-0, but they didn't. It was a missed opportunity. Here comes the snowball effect because then Clemson gets the ball back and they score a touchdown. It's 10-7. All right, Clemson's back in the game. All right, Syracuse, how are you going to respond? And that was really the theme of this game. Every time Syracuse was tested, every time there was a moment where you were maybe feeling a little bit nervous. There were definitely times throughout this game I was feeling nervous about Clemson coming back and winning. This team responded. They had just given up a touchdown. So what does the Syracuse offense do? They go to work and they score a touchdown. They're up 17-7. They're stunning Clemson early in this game. And later on, they take a 24-7 lead in the second quarter. Holy moly. But we have also seen this movie before, Syracuse fans. We went through the recent history of Syracuse football versus the Clemson Tigers. And I know those weren't Fran Brown teams, but this team has been so close to beating Clemson so many times. And yet they never really could. Even when they had the big lead, they couldn't hold on to it. They couldn't sustain it for 4 quarters. Clemson, to their credit, they don't quit. They don't give up. They get a touchdown, 24-14, and then they also get a stop, which was big. A big stop. Syracuse, actually, backtrack a little bit. Before that touchdown by Clemson, one of the big moments of this game early on, Syracuse is deep in Clemson territory. Actually, not deep. They're relatively past midfield. And Yassine Willis on a 3rd and a foot commits a false start penalty. Yeah, that's right. The running back moved a little bit early on 3rd and a foot when the play wasn't even going to him. Becomes 3rd and 6. Clemson gets a stop. They get a touchdown right thereafter. After some chaos, the game eventually goes to halftime. And by chaos, I mean Syracuse's defense tried to let Clemson at least get a field goal at the end of the first half, but to their credit, they stiffened. Clemson ran out of time, had to throw a Hail Mary, incomplete. Shout out to Devin Grant with nice coverage on the Hail Mary. Then a lightning delay. So that's how Syracuse is going to lose the game. That's probably what a lot of Syracuse fans, including myself, are thinking, right? We're almost conditioned against this very team to feel pessimistic. And I apologize. I shouldn't have been pessimistic given the result of this game. But that's just how I'm wired when I have seen this movie before. We have seen it before. It's a lightning delay. Clemson in their first home game of the year against Troy, they also came back after a lightning delay to win that game. And so what does Syracuse do? They start the half on defense, and Brahim Long makes a great play on a 2nd and 7 to knock it out of the receiver's hands. Almost was a fumble. And then Syracuse, to their credit, they force a punt, but they're backed up deep in their own territory. Backed up deep. Steve Angeli, he hits Jonte Cook on a catch and run up the middle of the field. 59 yards. They're now set up. It looks like Syracuse is going to potentially take a 31-14 lead in the second half. But the drive stalls. Syracuse really doesn't move it anymore. And I thought the most underrated moment of this entire game for Syracuse, Trip Woody, his 49-yard field goal, absolutely drilled it to give Syracuse a 27-14 lead in the third quarter. Could you imagine if Trip Woody missed that field goal? How demoralizing it could have been for Syracuse. You just had a stop on defense, which at that point was a minor miracle that they stopped the Clemson offense. They got off the field. They get a 59-yard play to Jonte Cook. 59 yards. and you're not going to get any points off that, and Clemson now is going to take over with good field position. I know I said earlier in the podcast, field position doesn't really matter, but I mean, I'd prefer them to try to drive the ball down the field. So Trip Woody, underrated moment of this game, drilling that 49-yard field goal to give Syracuse a 13-point game lead, And then from then on, this defense was sensational. Stop after stop, fourth down play after fourth down play that they got off the field. A couple of interceptions on Cade Klubnik, Davian Kerr with the one at the very end of the fourth quarter. Shout out to Jamie Tremble and Raheem Long for stopping Clemson near the 30-yard line of Syracuse. Jamie Tremble, outside linebacker, converting from tight end, plays a read option sort of pitch play perfectly where he stays in the middle between Cade Klubnik and Adam Randall, the running back, preventing the pitch and also forcing Cade Klubnik to the inside where Raheem Long meets him in the hole and makes a tackle. We'll get to it in the next segment when we discuss Steve Angeli, because this win, as great as it is for Syracuse, is a little bit bittersweet. But for now, here in the first 11 minutes of this show, let's just congratulate Syracuse football for beating, I think, is a good football team. I guess they're 1-3 now, so I don't know if they're a good football team. But regardless, it doesn't matter. Just take the win if you are Syracuse football, because we'll discuss in the third segment of this show, you're now halfway to making a bowl. Halfway. You already have 3 wins on your resume or on your schedule. Boom, you got it, right? So what a win for Syracuse, 34-21. Comment your thoughts in the comment section below. And coming up, we'll talk about that bittersweet moment. Steve Angeli going down with what appears to be a bad injury. So stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse as we discuss it and what it means moving forward, potentially with Rickie Collins. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. And this week's moment that moved the game forward, we're gonna talk about it more in the next segment here, okay, coming up. But Rickie Collins, shout out to Rickie Collins and his touchdown pass he threw to Justice Ross Simmons, which was a huge sigh of relief for Syracuse in the fourth quarter of that game. And when you follow that, what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. The weather's cooling down, the days are getting shorter, and that has me wanting to make my home feel even cozier. And when it comes to cozifying your space this fall, Wayfair is the place to go. Wayfair is everything you need to set the mood for the season, whether it's comfy recliners, warm bedding, autumn decor, or even an espresso machine so you can make your favorite latte at home. It's the perfect time to set up your home for fall so you can enjoy cozy nights in with family and friends, or to watch Syracuse football, of course. Cozify your space with Wayfair's curated collection of easy, affordable fall updates, from comfy recliners to cozy bedding and autumn decor. You'll find it all for way less at wayfair.com. That's Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. We're reacting to Syracuse football's 34-21 victory over the Clemson Tigers. And for the most part, this was a fantastic game played by Syracuse football. Comment your thoughts in the comment section below right now. But unfortunately, it was bittersweet because we have to talk about it. We have to address the elephant in the room, which is late third quarter on a 2nd and 7 play. Steve Angeli, the quarterback of Syracuse, who has played up until this point terrific football. He really has looked like one of, if not the best quarterback in the country right now since late in the fourth quarter against UConn. He has been outstanding for Syracuse. And it's just so unfortunate that on this 2nd and 7 play, he rolls to his right. He's got room in front of him, but he trips and he suffers a non-contact lower body injury. Now, full transparency, I record these podcasts before I listen to the press conference. I just want to get it out there for you all. So I don't necessarily know the severity of the injury. I'm not going to sit here and play doctor over here on TV. But what I will tell you is that it did not look good. It did not look pretty. And Steve Angeli, for the rest of this game, did not return. He was wearing a boot. He had crutches. Did not look good for Syracuse football. And then what makes matters worse is that you still have more than a full quarter to go. And up until this point, Syracuse, yes, they're winning the game, and I believe it was 27-14. But it just felt in that moment like, man, this was another chance where Syracuse had a chance at an upset, and it's just another way that they're going to somehow lose this game to Clemson. 2022, a bad late hit out of bounds completely flipped that game. And there were other moments throughout all Syracuse's near misses against Clemson, and this felt like the worst one because it's your quarterback in Steve Angeli, who I don't know what's going to happen to him long term. Maybe he'll be back next week. Again, I'm recording this before we have official updates on him, but we'll see. In comes Rickie Collins, and on third down, he does his best. The play was designed to be a quick out to Dan Villari. Maybe he gets a couple blocks and he makes a first down, but instead Clemson plays it perfectly and Syracuse has to punt. So now we're in the fourth quarter, I believe. Clemson has the ball. They're in their own territory. And this defense for Syracuse, this is really where they started going to work because Antoine Delorier, the true freshman, makes a play. That's right. He made a play. It wasn't Clemson making a mistake. Antoine Delorier, a true freshman linebacker, looks like he could be a stud for years because he's a stud right now, and he punches the ball out of Adam Randall's hands on just a basic dive play up the middle. And Syracuse recovers their setup in the red zone with their backup quarterback, but they are at this point up 13 points. At minimum, if you're Syracuse, you need a field goal. But that's not what they dialed up because Rickie Collins, to his credit, yes, he had the one play earlier when he entered the game cold, but he came out on this play, 1st and 10, inside the red zone, and throws a perfect back shoulder throw to Justice Ross Simmons, which on replay, you can debate whether or not it was a catch or not. It's debatable. I'll listen to it. I'm sure you can maybe go out there and you can find a screenshot there, here or there about was it incomplete? Was it complete? And the broadcast was incredibly confident that it was going to be incomplete. But from what I saw, and also from the call on the field, I'm not just saying this as a Syracuse fan and a Syracuse alum who was actively, of course, cheering for Syracuse to win, who hosts the Locked On Syracuse podcast. If the call on the field there was a touchdown, which it was, then the play should have been upheld because there's no indisputable evidence. And that goes both ways. If the referee had signaled incomplete, I don't know if there was enough there to say that that was a touchdown by Justice Ross Simmons. So it was a 50-50 play. It goes in Syracuse's favor, but it was perfectly executed by the backup quarterback in Rickie Collins. And I can go through his numbers real quickly, but regardless, I don't know if they're fair to necessarily judge, and they don't necessarily look good. I mean, 3 of 8 for 34 yards and a touchdown. And rushing wise, he had 3 carries for -8 yards, but that's because he got sacked a lot towards the end of the game. Not even bad sacks. Taking sacks at that point, bleeds clock, wasn't the worst deal. But to come in that spot and essentially deliver the dagger, I mean, shout out to Rickie Collins for that throw, and of course, Justice Ross Simmons for making the catch. And from then on, this defense was just outstanding. Outstanding. And I want to shout out Elijah Robinson, the defensive coordinator, because he called a great game. He called a great game. He knew when to blitz. He knew when to drop back, call coverage plays. And oftentimes, when Syracuse allowed chunk plays, I didn't think it was because of the defensive coordinator. I thought it was because, well, Clemson beats their man. Clemson beats their man. or Syracuse couldn't always generate a pass rush on Cade Klubnik, and at times they sort of got home. But I thought that Elijah Robinson called a very good game for Syracuse football and defense, and he deserves his flowers because he gets a lot of criticism from myself. He gets a lot of criticism probably from you because this defense at times has let Syracuse down. But that also means that we're going to be fair, or at least I'm going to be fair, and give Elijah Robinson credit for whatever I don't know if he made an adjustment in the second half. I mean, Peyton Manning once said that second half adjustments are the biggest myth in football. Maybe they did make second half adjustments and they watched the film because, I mean, there was that lightning delay for nearly 2 hours. So they had time to actually really make adjustments. But I thought this was a well-called game for Elijah Robinson. In fact, if you're really going to criticize anyone, how about how Syracuse managed the clock towards the end of the fourth quarter? I mean, my goodness, there were times when they were throwing instead of running and not bleeding clock. But honestly, I don't want to get into that right now because this should mostly be a positive podcast. And as far as the future with Steve Angeli and Rickie Collins, you know, I tweeted this out. It's what Dick Vermeil said about the 1999, at the time, St. Louis Rams, where they had Trent Green as their quarterback, and he goes down in the preseason out for the year, torn ACL. And I'm not going to sit here and say that's what happened to Steve Angeli because I don't know what happened to Steve Angeli, if he's going to be out long-term or if this is short-term at the time of this recording. But what I will say is that Dick Vermeil said in a press conference, we will rally behind Kurt Warner and we will play good football. And I can't promise you that Rickie Collins is going to be amazing for Syracuse. I don't know. I really don't. And that's what kind of stinks about this. This could be like the 99 Rams where they doesn't matter. Or if you want a college example, it's Ohio State from, I forgot the year, 2014 was when they won the national championship. Not the most recent one, but the one before that. Was it 2014 when they won it? JT Barrett gets hurt against Michigan. In comes Cardell Jones. They win the 2 games in the college football playoff, including beating Alabama, number 1 at the time. They win the Big Ten championship. Could be like that, or, I mean, I'm a New York Jets fan, so I'm scarred. It could be Vinny Testaverde 99, or it could be Aaron Rodgers 2023. I don't know. I have no idea what is going to happen with Rickie Collins. We just got to hope that he can do it and that this offense can rally behind him. What we do know is that this offensive coordinator and Jeff Nixon, aside from some disagreements I had with him at the end of the fourth quarter and how he managed the clock, and part of it's also on Fran Brown, the head coach, he knows how to call a game. And he knows how to put his players in the best position to succeed. How do I know this, you may ask? Because this Syracuse offense, for the most part, is brand new from a year ago. And yet it still, for the most part, functions at a very high level. And we'll see how it functions with Rickie Collins. We'll see. And we'll talk about it more in the road ahead. But as of right now, all we can concentrate really on is the fact that Syracuse went into Death Valley. They beat the Clemson Tigers 34-21, and we should be happy about that. Comment your thoughts in the comments section below. Coming up, the road ahead for Syracuse football. Could they possibly contend in the ACC after this win? Stick with me here on Locked On Syracuse. This episode is brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. And folks, did you get your coffee this morning ahead of Syracuse versus Clemson? How about maybe during the lightning delay, did you go get some coffee? Did you potentially get it from Salt City Coffee over on University Avenue? Because when I was a student at Syracuse, that was a place where I would frequently go to get my coffee, especially on game days. Well, it's pretty good. That's all I'll say about it. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. It's the weekend. Time to crown this week's MVP. on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. And for Syracuse, a 34-21 victory over the Clemson Tigers. And there's a lot of players that we could honestly give this to. I mean, Jonte Cook, how about him? 6 catches, 113 yards. Yassine Willis setting the tone with 18 carries, 94 yards, most of it coming in the first half. But I'm not just going to give it to this player out of pity. I'm going to give it to this player because he genuinely, up until the point he got hurt, played a terrific game for Syracuse football. And of course, I'm referring to Steve Angeli, who went 18-31 for 244 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and at no point did he really put the ball in harm's way. And just like Steve Angeli delivered for Syracuse, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 on or in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Syracuse football goes into Death Valley. They beat the Clemson Tigers 34-21. Their quarterback is injured. And at the time of this recording, we do not know the severity of the injury or how long he will be out for. For Syracuse, here is the good news. You are now 3-1. We talked all throughout the off season how quote unquote difficult this schedule was going to be for Syracuse. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's now easy for Syracuse. Easy schedule now. That's not what I am doing. Absolutely not. There are still some very, very tough tests on the schedule for Syracuse that hopefully they can rise to the challenge just like they did this Saturday against Clemson. Right? You still got to go to Notre Dame. You still got at Miami. I know SMU lost, but that won't be easy on the road. Of course, Georgia Tech looks like a really good team. You're going to have to go to the road to beat them, and you can never discount ACC opponents at home. But right now, you're Syracuse football. Steal is not the right word because they didn't steal this game. They flat out earned this win, and they flat out beat down the Clemson Tigers. I'm sure it's not going to be very nice in Clemson land following this performance. That's all I'll say on that. Maybe you'll hear more of my thoughts on ACC squad this upcoming week. But for Syracuse, you're 3-1. You just won a game on the road. You won a game on the road. What does that mean if you are Syracuse football? Maybe they could contend in the ACC. Maybe they could. They're 1-0 in conference play. The loss to Tennessee does not matter with conference play. Would have mattered if you're talking about Syracuse in the college football playoff, but as far as potentially getting to an ACC title, doesn't matter that Syracuse lost to Tennessee. That's a game that you're allowed to lose. And they didn't even look that bad aside from the first quarter of that game. Wasn't that terrible? And Tennessee's a pretty good team, by the way. I don't know if you've ever seen them play before, but you know how they handled themselves against Georgia. Probably should have won that game, by the way. You're 3-1. You just won a game on the road. Now, if you're Syracuse football, all you got to do is win 3 more games to make a bowl. You don't have to win on the road for the rest of the season to make a bowl because they still have 4 more home games on the schedule. You win 3 out of 4, 6-6, which I'm not saying that. What I'm saying there is if you win 3 out of 4, at minimum, you are 6-6. You qualify for a bowl. Maybe they could contend in the ACC, but a lot of it's going to depend on their quarterback play, whether it's Rickie Collins, whether it's Steve Angeli, or who knows behind him. Maybe it's Luke Carney that has to be thrust into action at some point. And he's a true freshman. Who knows what's going to happen? But this is also why, after the UConn game, as bad as Syracuse played, why it was also a relief that they won. Even though they did not perform well, they won, and we're not in the business of throwing away victories. That's for sure. They count. No, it wasn't pretty. No, they did not play well. And if Syracuse plays like they did versus UConn versus pretty much any other opponent, aside from FCS teams, they would probably lose. They would. They'd probably lose. But they found a way to win that game. Maybe that game was the opposite of Stanford from 2024, where Syracuse should have beaten Stanford at home. And Syracuse was a really good team in 2024, but they lost that game. Could you imagine how much the season could have changed had they beaten Stanford at home? Could you imagine how much it could have changed the trajectory of where 2024 was going? Maybe they do sneak into the college football playoff had they beaten Stanford. Maybe they do. I bring that up again because the same thing could have happened with UConn this year, except they won it. They found a way to win. You're 3 wins away now from a bowl after stealing this one in Death Valley against Clemson. So the road ahead for Syracuse, a lot of it's going to depend on quarterback play. But assuming they can still get pretty decent quarterback play, they're set up to make a bowl. Just win 3 out of your final 4 home games of the season. Ta-da! Bowl team, despite a completely new roster, despite a very young roster, and think about the future of this program following a successful 2025 with the recruiting class that they have coming in, more investments probably into the team that could help them in the transfer portal as well. Players are probably going to want to come back to play for this team. Antoine Delorier, middle linebacker, absolute stud. Demetrius Samuel on the outside. Chris Peel still has eligibility. You could see, not the finish line, but you could see where this program is potentially heading right now. And it's only week 4 of Fran Brown's first year as head coach. This makes no sense that this is happening with Syracuse football. No sense. I think Syracuse football got the Fran Brown hire right. And I know that's Captain Obvious, but I think they did. Comment your thoughts in the comment section below following Syracuse's 34-21 victory over Clemson. As far as what's coming up on this podcast here in the near future, tomorrow we will have our fan reaction podcast. Then on Monday, big picture takeaways. And then on Tuesday, we get ready for Syracuse's next opponent. So that's all coming up on Locked On Syracuse here in the near future. And folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse. I will see you all again soon.